welcome up to the front Mr. James Bates.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. My name is James. I'm a visual artist, hence the visual art. At the very beginning of the process of Capstone, before we even created our concept for the actual project, we all had to come up with a research topic, something that was very broad, marketable, relatable to a large audience, and was grounded in something concrete. I really wanted to look at how we interact with art, and so I ended up trying to research how art influences us, and I came to the conclusion that art inherently influences people no matter how small we think it is. So art that we see as set dressing, background noise, things that we tend to take for granted are hugely influential on us and shape who we are as human beings. In order to show this, I want to take it into an introspective lens, because if I do this really big, broad idea, it's hard for someone to relate to it, see themselves in it, get a good idea of what I'm trying to go for. So I took art, visual art, and more specifically, different music albums that have influenced me as a person, and I took the art associated with them, and I tried to reimagine it in a way that was specific to me. The goal of this project isn't necessarily to showcase my experience, but rather to give you a blueprint to then step back, take a look at your own life, your own experiences with art and things you might have taken for granted, and kind of think, what would my version of this installation be? What would it look like? You know, what music, what art, what books, what poems, what other things that I've experienced made me who I am, and how would I display that if I had all the control in the world? Now, there were a lot of setbacks. This was originally supposed to be a 3x3 9-piece installation. As you can see, it is not. My creative process involves a lot of what I call agonizing. Sitting there, redoing and redoing and redoing until you end up with a muddy color of white that you can no longer paint on top of because the top layer is way thicker than the rest of the paper. However, we ended up with 6 pieces, which is pretty good in the end. And I have 6 half-completed pieces at home because halfway through making the other record sleeves, I then decided to scrap that and transfer those designs onto being painted on the record themselves to go in a diagonal through the 3x3 format. However, those did not get completed in time. A little bit overambitious there. But I'm really happy with how some of them turned out. I specifically chose to do records because I got into record collecting. I'm not like a super serious, hardcore person about it, but I just find it really nice to own something physical, a piece of art that is yours. You hold it in your hands, it can't be taken away with the press of a button, and you're able to play it, have it, show it off. And I wanted to recreate that with moments in my life. I will now move into the talkback portion of this exhibition.
Since you showed me the one with the red building, I've been wondering, what is that scene? Like, is it your house, or?
Oh, okay. So, I was leaving my house to go grocery shopping with my mom in the middle of the night. And I stood there, this was about 3 days to a week, somewhere in the time frame, after my next door neighbors moved out. And I was looking into over the top of their fence because I'm just tall enough to where my eyes are like 3 inches above the top of the brick wall that leads to their house. And the movers had left all the lights on, and you could see the bare kitchen cabinets and the taken out appliances, and they were repainting the walls. And something about that period of transition that was abandoned for a moment just really spoke to me. So my phone was inside. So I stole my mom's phone and I took a picture of it and sent it to myself because I wanted to make it into art. And then that ended up being part of my capstone as opposed to a project for school.
Can you tell us what records you chose?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the top one here is Ladies of the Canyon, Joni Mitchell. This one is Nina Simone's At Town Hall, her debut album, my favorite of all time. This one is the Judds, Rockin' with the Rhythm. That one isn't necessarily one that I pick up because it's my favorite, but because it's related to familial connection and generational connection and how art can bring us together. This is Trouble in Shangri-La by Stevie Nicks. That is Mitski's The Land is Inhospitable, and so are we. This is Never Forever by Kate Bush, and the 3 that were scrapped, which I will hopefully still complete one day to add to my personal collection. Solitude by Billie Holiday, Arrival by ABBA, and I will remember the ninth one eventually. My mind is a little scattered. When I think of it, what was it? Do you remember?
No, but now you've put me on the spot and I feel really bad.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were raising your hand or going, I know.
No. I was gonna ask you, they're all strong females. Was that intentional?
No. My music taste is a lot of old vocal jazz. There's only really like 2 representatives in that cluster that I mentioned from that. But that definitely plays into my modern music taste, where I like a lot of strong vocals and quiet instrumentals. I just like the reflective nature, and I love a strong, emotional voice. I found that there are artists who are like really clear sound, perfect, hit every note correctly, but I'm still more drawn to people with like texture in their voice, who are conveying emotion and power and those things.
What different medias did you use?
Okay. I used a lot of different medias, included some which didn't actually make it into the final pieces. This one is, well, first of all, they're all cold pressed watercolor paper that I put together into the actual record themselves, bound with Gorilla Gel super glue. I was supposed to use a bookbinding medium, but that was at studio and we got snowed in, so Gorilla Glue Gel it was. This one is a linoleum relief block print. Connor got me into them a while ago, as he does with every single person who has done a relief block print. And I really wanted to do one, especially, I can talk about that later, but the medium is significant to that one. This one is a mix of acrylic, oil pastel, and gouache. This one is gouache, watercolor, acrylic, gel pen. This one is just watercolor and gouache, I believe. This one's all acrylic, and then this one, it was another relief print. I have it fully inked and ready to go. However, I returned the carving tool to school, forgetting that I had to carve the relief print, and I did not get it back in time to print it, so I ended up redoing it as an ink drawing, using a brush pen, and then going over it with watercolor and diluted ink.
What's your favorite record that you made, or record sleeve that you made? And also, are you going to hang them in your room? Because if you're not, I will.
I don't know if I hang them up my roof just because I'm there for not much longer.
Oh.
Yeah, transition period. It's probably a tie between the corners. I just really like how they turned out. I wanted to focus on really, not necessarily detailed compositions, but going for something bolder, because that's what I was drawn to when I looked at, master artist examples to pull from. It was simple compositions that really drew the eye, because they were trying to summarize, this is the contents of an album, this is the general summary of what's inside this large package of art, displayed all in one piece. And I think that those two capture that the best. These ones are colorful and bright, but I think they fall a bit flatter, they have less contrast, compared to the two corners, the relief print and the ink drawing.
I would ask like the reverse of the misplanned question, which is if you could go back to when you pitched your capstone, since you're kind of talking about like missing a lot of elements and being like having a rougher process, if you could go back to when you kind of pitched it, would you change anything about your pitch, or would there be any other kind of shortcuts in your process that you would have made if you do this again?
I don't think I'd change my pitch. I think I had a strong starting point and a decent end. I think I would just go back in time and tell myself, just start doing the work and stop second guessing yourself, because I knew that was my weakness. And I knew if I did something introspective, it was gonna make it 20 times worse. And then I did those two things. So I knew my weaknesses, tried to avoid them, and then fell into a pit trap that I made.
All right, so you told us your favorites are the corners. Can you pick one of your favorites and tell us how you created your design from the music? Like, what was it from the music that really did for you?
This one's really interesting. Oddly enough, I think those two probably pull the least from the music itself and more from personal experience. I'll talk a little bit about the layers that came out in the quarter, because I really like some of the little things I hid in the design. first of all, the background is a canyon. Wow, creative. Round of applause for me. But also, I wanted to pull elements from the album cover, you know, the album designs, other pieces of art. Like this one isn't inspired just by the album cover, it's also a reference to Saturn devouring his son. And here you can see that the silhouette of the Reaper is the silhouette of Joni in the album cover. The art that's there just flipped in reverse. And the image that I pulled from is an image of me walking a dog. I'm a dog walker. It's surprisingly lucrative if you're in the right neighborhood. But this one in specific, he was my favorite. He was Luke. He passed over winter break unexpectedly with an aneurysm. And it hit really hard. And so I scrapped my previous design and I completely redid the project. So another linoleum block that was all ready to go and never got carved. But this piece specifically is about art and its relation to new ideas. And it's about how death is a concept that was very foreign to me as a child, like most children, but also because I was lucky enough I didn't have any family members or friends who died. I was very fortunate in that regard. So I got introduced to concepts like death through art, through media, through this idea of, you know, we're depicting abstract experiences, things that we may not be able to experience ourselves, and introducing that to someone new, me. So it's how art introduced me to death. And in Rainy Night House, one of the songs in the album, it specifically has a lyric that talks about who we might be, and the idea of a lack of permanence, I think, really stuck with me throughout my life. And the idea of you are not you because there are infinite possibilities of what you could be, and none of those may come to pass, all of them may come to pass. And this is starting to get a little bit rambling. This is starting to get a bit abstract to the point where I'm not following myself. I have pages and pages of notes. Some of them make sense, some of them don't. But it's a lot about how art is able to help us introduce new concepts to ourselves and deal with things we don't understand or aren't ready to face. Also, once we dismiss, one of the big parts is like, what would your version be? I have a little binder off to the side here. If you want to write any pieces of art that really like stuck with you, shaped who you are, had a big influence on you, and maybe a short explanation of like why they're significant, please feel free to share. I'd love to see them.
Thank you very much.